Idea News Magazine.
A presentation by the Radio Idea editorial team relating to the conference held at the Chamber of Deputies in Rome on April 14, 2025, entitled ISSUP in the Chamber of Deputies: Well-being, School and Work Without Stress to Build Peace. The literal translation of the entire interview is intended for supporters and members of the ISSUP International School of Peace. The preparation of this material involved the use of artificial intelligence for transcriptions and translations. Although we have taken the utmost care, we apologize in advance to the speakers and listeners for any inaccuracies. We wish you a good listen. Introduction by the Honorable Member of the Chamber of Deputies. Honorable Alessandro Caramiello.
Buonasera a tutti. Scusate, tra 5 minuti devo scappare ad un'altra conferenza, però poi dopo ritorno. Io ringrazio.
Good evening, everyone. Excuse me, in 5 minutes I have to rush off to another conference, but I'll be back later. I thank the International School of Studies for Universal Peace for the invitation. I bring you an experience. I am the president of a parliamentary intergroup called Sviluppo Sud Fragili, Development South Fragile Areas, so internal areas and smaller islands, and it is composed of about 50 parliamentarians from all political forces who are synergistically trying to work together beyond any ideological and party divides. So, beyond the symbol, on common themes like this one, therefore, on a social activity of the third sector for welfare, we are trying to work together and turn proposals coming from civil society into parliamentary measures. So, let's say this intergroup is then composed of a technical scientific committee, so it's civil society listening to politics and vice versa, and from this brainstorming, it's trying to facilitate, to help, well, the life of the communities and citizens. This conference is very interesting, and I strongly wanted to participate in and organize it, for the activities that, you are involved in. Among the various assets, I also read about cultural and ecological tourism, and for years I have also been involved in trying to generate tourism in the territory. And I believe that with cultural tourism I would add food and wine, seaside, religious, we can ensure that in some territories where, well, there are important cultural attractors, if there is the political capacity to systemize these important attractors, we could generate tourism, induce development, and jobs. And I believe this is a fundamental thing that politics must look at carefully. I won't elaborate further. I also visited your website for everything that you do, so also with the collaboration of public and private entities, municipalities, provinces, and regions, as activities and in this synergy, because the word to use, in my opinion, very important, is that of synergy also in the realization of projects specifically for the diffusion of the culture of peace. And if one lives well by applying, therefore, meditation, physical activity, nutrition, being well with ourselves, we can also send messages of peace towards others. And right now, we greatly need peace, given what is happening in the Middle East, what is still happening with Russia, with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. And it's not feasible, it's not conceivable, still today, to rearm, to spend 800 billion euros on weapons just for Italy, 30 billion euros, when we could use these funds for healthcare, for public education, precisely, for welfare, social policies, for the third sector. I won't elaborate further. I'm happy, I repeat, to be here. I have to step away, but I will return, so then I will read your slides carefully. And I hope that from this meeting, some parliamentary measures might arise. Count on me, on this intergroup, because if we have the ability to go beyond, as I said, that symbol and to bring some amendment in some specific measure to support, therefore, all the communities, and this is the duty of politics, we must all do it. I thank you, and we'll catch up later.
Supportare quindi tutte le comunità, e questo è il dovere della politica, lo dobbiamo fare tutti quanti noi. Vi ringrazio e ci aggiorniamo dopo.
R. Scoglietti. Dr. Scoglietti is the Scientific and Cultural Director of ISSUP.
Buongiorno a tutti. Prima che lei vada a occuparsi dell'altra conferenza, io voglio ringraziare lei e tutti gli operatori della Camera per l'apertura e la...
Good morning, everyone.
And before you go to attend the other conference, I want to thank you and all the operators of the Chamber for the openness and the fraternal welcome aimed at improving social relations in the various regions of Italy. What we intend was conceived and planned as an association by Professor Mario Brunetti, a sociologist, who graduated from the Sorbonne University in Paris, and who spent his entire life bridging the gap that often exists, due to various situations, between citizens and the representatives of the government, and therefore of the public sphere, who took on this task which, indeed, was defined by Professor Brunetti as a noble art. Because politics is essentially a noble art, and we are also here so that these residual distances, those that exist, are bridged. Because much has been done in the past to discredit the representatives of the public and political sphere, and this must absolutely be avoided to establish just human relations, like the foundation of democracy that originates in Athens, Greece, and with the great Greek philosophers who demonstrated how citizens' associations are designated to assist the constituted authorities in carrying out their task in a constructive, critical, but not destructive manner. Therefore, the main commitment of our association at the social level is this, and then also in the other sectors that we will present shortly. Thank you. You're welcome. So, then, I'll start this meeting, this chat, because it's practically an informal chat that aims to aid understanding, let's say, in an agile, dynamic, not boring, not academic way, also because this naturally facilitates comprehension. Because we will also talk about topics that are generally used by insiders in the fields of medicine, psychoanalysis, psychology, pedagogy, okay? And education in law and peace. We started by presenting to the honorable member, who had other commitments, the figure of Professor Mario Brunetti, sociologist, who conceived and followed throughout his life this association for the purposes we mentioned earlier. Professor Brunetti had been an official of the Court of Auditors and provided legal and administrative assistance to deputies and senators, and he was the person who reorganized the existing library from the Giolittian era. After that, what did he dedicate himself to? To the dissemination of the historical and literary culture of non-violence from the 5 continents, so practically of all people, of all times, from antiquity to today, who dedicated their lives to peace, and by peace, we mean more just human relations. Peace, according to the ISSUP Institute, which is the International School of Studies for Peace, is first and foremost peace with oneself, as is known. Peace is something that must be conquered to then be able to live it and put it into practice on the social level. It's known, right? That practically, to be at peace with oneself, first of all, one must be in good health, there you go. And so, one of the main activities of the school is to foster self-understanding, understanding of one's own physical body, one's own psyche, and the processes that determine our positive or negative behavior. And therefore, we have dealt with the resolution of stress, the primary source of discomfort, neuroses, depression, and even more serious problems for many decades in industrial and post-industrial society. We all know that stress is not only, let's say, experienced by the ages, how to say, 3rd, 4th age due to health reasons, illness, but it is also experienced in very early childhood. Childhood has its stress. In schools, where the topic of schools will be discussed later, there are many tensions, anxieties, parent-teacher relationships, teacher-student relationships, and so they are worlds where, practically, one lives, not always, especially in recent decades, in a harmonious way. There are many conflicts. You will have also heard about bullying, right, in schools. That is, many kids are so, how to say, emotionally disturbed, and this leads them to have conflicts with their parents, first of all, then with teachers, and also with other students. So, what can be done about this? Everyone should do their small part at an operational level, in the society where they live, in the family, at school, at work, politically, culturally, socially, religiously, in all fields of human life. But if we do not restore the individual in their psychosomatic unity, that is, where indeed, each of us has achieved harmony between mind, what we think, emotions, which, by the way, is the most disturbed field, the emotional field, right, and also mental, and then this is transmitted to the physical level. One begins to have anxiety, depression,
conflictual interpersonal relationships. What is the origin? The origin is that there hasn't been the possibility, or there is little of it, to get to know oneself better and to know how to neutralize negative stress. Because stress is any situation we live through that tests us to overcome an obstacle, to live normally, to catch a bus, to pay the bills. So, if, however, there is an imbalance that continues over time, even the smallest things become insurmountable. And so, stress, indeed, can be overcome in many ways, with a healthier life, with healthy nutrition, during holidays, precisely, one takes a break that allows us to get out of the routine. But often even holidays become a source of stress, because there's situational stress when one leaves home, finds other environments, the hotel isn't always okay, etc., etc. So, in summary, because then we'll give the floor to the other sectors, stress-free company and stress-free school. My task here is to illustrate what we propose in our programs. We promote the science of creative intelligence. What does this mean? This science, which we implement at a didactic level, also therapeutic, for all age groups, brings about, at a physiological level, in the psychosoma, a balance between what one thinks, emotions, and the physical body. It reconciles these three parts, let's say, to be schematic, that compose us. How do we do this? With courses open to everyone, because we are an ODV, voluntary organization, and so we do this in our free time. HM? And we make use of teachers, doctors, psychologists, architects, and volunteers who, in their own time, dedicate part of their free time to carry out these programs. Now, what we do as anti-stress programs consist of very simple courses, suitable for everyone, understandable, you don't need to be scientists or have studied. They are open to everyone. So we go from very early childhood, to adolescence, to adulthood, to the third, fourth, and final age. Among other things, practically, we are doing and have already done in the past, and we could resume, also our action for people who are very ill and who are practically in the final stage of life. You know that with illness, there you go, anguish sets in, etc., etc. And even there, practically, it can be very useful to have competent people available who can accompany us, even in this last step of our human adventure. Good. What we do is scientifically proven. What does scientifically proven mean? It means that regarding PNEI, which is an acronym meaning psycho, neuro, endocrine, immunology, it's a science that has established itself over the last few decades and relates what? Medicine, psychology, pedagogy, all together, with all the functions that these sciences have, to achieve a psychophysical balance. In fact, those who take our courses, what do they gain? They gain better balance, less reactivity to stress, to interpersonal relationships, because often each of us has conditioned, programmed responses to something we are used to responding to instinctively, there you go. Whereas with these simple courses, practically, reason, the mind controls better, but doesn't repress. The mind controls, disciplines, but doesn't repress functionality, emotions, but ensures that one doesn't fall into conflicts, which then create further damage. So one manages to control more precisely because a greater psychophysical balance has been achieved. Now, naturally, PNEI has a strictly medical branch. What does it mean? It means that everything we think, any thought, emotion, generates in our nervous system chemical reactions, chemical passages between one cell and another in the brain, in this case, neurons, which determine subsequent behavior. Therefore, everything, I repeat, that we think, every emotion that we experience, has physical effects on our entire organism. So on the heart, on circulation, on kidney function, on everything. This seems quite clear to me. Why? With this re-education in self-awareness and awareness of one's own mind, it also happens that in our brain, which has over 100 billion neuronal cells, which in turn have from 50,000 to 100,000 connections with all the other cells, so the internet seems like a game compared to human potential, it happens that all these exchanges occur more and more harmoniously. Everything that then happens at the neuronal level in our cranial mass, the encephalon, is then communicated to the endocrine glands. The endocrine glands are the glands that secrete hormones, and so you know there's the thyroid, the thymus, the ovaries, the pancreas, the adrenals. Now, practically the first effects of these practices lead to strengthening the immune system. So the basis of health is an efficient, unstressed immune system, and therefore the hormones from the adrenal cortex, primarily cortisol, are practically harmonized, there's no excess. Even at the cerebral level, when we are stressed or have fears or worries, what happens? A substance called noradrenaline is secreted, and noradrenaline practically causes conflicts, aggression, etc. Whereas when we establish more normal, physiological rhythms, so we do beautiful, harmonious things, this has the same counterpart at the cerebral level, and dopamine, serotonin, and all hormones of well-being, of happiness are secreted. And so we feel better. These hormones positively influence the endocrine glands, which in turn practically make the rest of the physical body function well, so all the organs, liver, kidneys, etc. Okay. Having said that, what do we have in our nervous system? What else do we have? We have let's say, enormous potential, and scientists have shown that we use, of our neurons, of our faculties, some say 4 to 5%. So, practically, geniuses, inventors, and also the great people who have achieved excellent results in their lives regarding their commitment in various professions, use 10%, 15%. So if we used all our faculties, what would happen? A better world.
Ma il conflitto, se resta, diciamo, fisiologico e naturale, è anche positivo per un ulteriore sviluppo.
Naturally, these faculties must be practically disciplined, educated. How? Starting from the earliest childhood. And so what happens? It happens that in the family, balanced parents practically have the possibility to raise balanced children. At school, balanced teachers have the possibility to make students study well, to make them grow in a way that is not like a burdensome task, studying, exams, etc., but as something joyful, interesting, alive. And practically, each of us is a receiver-transmitter. And so education is also the basis of this school's programs. So we carry forward education for development, both biologically, physically, and also economically, commercially, touristically, as Honorable Caramiello mentioned, and culturally. Because only a society that eliminates the distances between person and person, in the same condominium, in the city, everywhere, can re-establish an era of peace. Because peace comes first of all from self-knowledge, from balance, and we are social beings, social animals. What do we have in common with animals? So, the study of the mind, the brain, and anthropology, meaning the science that studies humans, has shown that our brain consists, schematically for understanding, of 3 parts. An ancient brain, called the paleoencephalon, okay? Which we also have in common with animals and reptiles. What is this paleoencephalon for? It serves to maintain the instinct of survival of life, of territory, and it's basic. But if, precisely, the paleoencephalon is not in harmony with the median brain, called the mesencephalon, which we humans have in common with mammals, and if the median brain is not in harmony with the neocortex, with the cerebral cortex or neopallium, which disciplines everything and connects everything, rationalizes and harmonizes, what happens? It happens that the human being, practically, if the paleoencephalon prevails, behaves in a very brutal way. Because the reptile brain, you should know that, for example, dinosaurs had enormous bodies, right? We know that. And a very tiny brain. The paleoencephalon, mesencephalon almost absent, the neocortex null. So how do we distinguish ourselves from the animal world, from everything else? By the appearance of the cerebral cortex. This cerebral cortex has made it so that the human being, from Homo sapiens sapiens, we have developed, we have grown through historical eras, research, art, culture, and also, however, we witness, often in human history, something that disharmonizes all this. And therefore, as Honorable Caramiello mentioned, conflicts. But conflict, if it remains, let's say, physiological and natural, is also positive for further development. But if the conflict becomes bitter, becomes absolute, then we witness everything that we have witnessed and still witness in human history. And let's say that then the work of each of us is to reharmonize oneself, to work for more just social relations, and to establish first of all within ourselves this, in our own family, at school, in society. Already Sigmund Freud spoke in 1895 that the human being is made to experience the pleasure of life, of existence. We are not made for depression, for pain, for tragedies, for conflicts. Tendentially, every human being tends to feel good, wants to be happy for themselves, for their family, for their children, etc. As the awareness of the neocortex grows, and becoming more and more human, what happens? One goes beyond one's own family, and so what happens? It happens that extended families are formed. That is, my family is well, but it cannot be well if other families are unwell. So people start talking about the great men of peace, like Gandhi, Luther King, and also Italians, Mokucci, and others, who put into action activities throughout their lives to bring us ever closer to what? To a single global, planetary humanity, where each nation preserves its particularity, but at the same time is in continuous, harmonious exchange, cooperation with other peoples. And this, in our small way, we try to do, because the founder of the ISSUP school, since 1960, has operated on the 5 continents, also in Italy, in all regions, and also at the Palace of the United Nations, at the UN, both in Geneva and New York, to carry forward the consciousness of citizens of the world. When we practically think something positive or experience positive emotions, neuronal circuits are generated, activated in our nervous system, which are linked to well-being. Every time we have conflictual behaviors, traumatic, etc., other circuits are activated that practically lead to depression, decrease, they lower the immune system, and naturally everything that follows. These circuits have. I don't want, precisely, to keep you too long, but it is also necessary, let's say, to show what they are. There are, precisely, the transmissions from neuron to neuron that also occur throughout the animal kingdom. Okay, dopamine, serotonin, noradrenaline, acetylcholine, histamine. For example, histamine is very important, for example, for anorexics, for anorexic people. If they have dysfunctions of these, let's say, molecules that transmit from neuron to neuron, problems arise. And so, as you can see, it's all related. Then there are in our nervous system other systems that modulate our psychic activities and our emotions too. There are neuronal systems, so-called GABAergic, which practically calm the excessive activity, nervousness of the nervous system. In fact, those who are very anxious take anxiolytics, right? Which act by calming this neuronal circuit. While there are other circuits that excite the nervous system. Okay? And this also happens with certain foods, with excess coffee, alcohol, cigarettes, and then they lead to depression. Excessive excitement leads to that. And every emotion has a physiological correlation that can be seen with a simple blood test. And so especially the immune system, now we know it very well, and there are cytokines that govern health or illness. Then there are psychoneuropsychic circuits. Okay? Which are schematically described in this way. The opioid system, we have a system in the brain, neurons connected to each other, opioid and cannabinoid. Every time we have negative experiences, the opioid system is activated. So fears of any kind, conflicts, worries about tomorrow, which exist at all ages, the student for exams, the child who doesn't want to go to school, they exist at all ages. This opioid system is activated. So, you need to know that this opioid system is the most active one. It's the one that functions the most. It's the one that almost never leaves us, not even during the night. It doesn't even let us sleep well, because the thing becomes automatic. Just a hint, and fear, depression, anxiety are activated. And one goes on alert. So, what is our task in our small way, like many other people who work and associations that work in this field? It is to enhance, to activate the cannabinoid system, that is, linked to joy, to happiness, to doing beautiful things, to love. And so what do? We ensure that this system, which is the least active one, is the least used one. Because we are immersed almost continuously in a mare magnum, vast confusion of information that is often negative, stressful, etc., etc. So it is all the more necessary to activate well-being, the joy of living, and so on. Good. Then we also have, in the center of our brain, a gland that many of you will have known or studied, the pineal gland. This pineal gland does not act based on internal stimuli from the physical body, but is linked to the circadian rhythms of light and dark. It's very important because it regulates all the other glands. It wakes us up in the morning. Have you asked yourselves why at a certain point we wake up? It's because practically there is an internal secretion into the blood of hormonal substances that wake us up, adrenaline. Otherwise, we wouldn't wake up. This gland is so important, you will also have known one of the proteins that are secreted, melatonin, right? Melatonin, which precisely regulates the sleep-wake rhythm and which is activated by darkness and decreases at dawn. Day, and then it's a circadian rhythm, meaning it follows the 24 hours, maximum at noon, then it starts to decrease, etc., etc. And it rises again. Then there are many other substances. I'll also mention another one called 5-hydroxytryptamine, which is a molecule that makes us have beautiful dreams. Not only that, it harmonizes everything even further. But, precisely, for this to happen, one must re-establish healthy life rhythms from infant, from the very beginning, from birth, from pregnancy onwards. Because pregnancy is also very important for the unborn child. Because what the mother thinks, the emotions, the harmony or lack thereof in the family is totally registered by the unborn child. So this means being more aware. Everything we will do to be more aware will improve ourselves, those around us, and everyone. What more is there? There's more in that psychoneuroendocrine immunology gives us a cross-section, a total understanding of what we are, how we can change, how we can feel better, in the light of so-called science, because it's correlated by tests, simply, I said before, that can be done with a blood sample. Good. Regarding the pineal gland, what happens? It happens that we, with this science, are getting closer to what? To the sages of all times, who have already demonstrated, both with their philosophical studies and also practical ones, the reality of all this. For example, regarding our tradition, which we call Judeo-Christian, we have St. Paul. St. Paul already said that man is composed schematically, let's say, of 3 bodies, physical, soul, and spirit. What is this spirit? Is it alcohol? No. The spirit is the higher quintessence of the thinking faculty of man. It has also been seen that very seriously ill patients, for example, oncological or other, scientifically proven in hospital wards by operators working in this sector, have a better chance of recovery if they have this trust, faith, and have spiritual qualities. But now, on a scientific level, what is the spirit? He says, your witty is spirited. The spirit, someone defined it as the capacity to love. So it may be that we agree on this. So, if we develop the capacity for understanding, for loving, and for sharing with ourselves, in the family, with neighbors, and everything that can contribute to this, we commit ourselves to doing it, we will have a better society. Liberation cannot come from outside, it cannot come from the afterlife or from another planet. We are here to implement this better way of living, each in their own sphere, each in the area of their own habitat of residence, and so forth. Thank you, and see you again soon. I now give the floor to the Professor of Applied Physics, says the President of the Institute Antonella Nardelli here, who will introduce our work regarding anti-stress and better relationships in schools between students, parents and teachers therefore in this vital environment for all of us.
Now let's listen to the report by Professor Antonella Nardelli of ISSUP.
Allora, buonasera a tutti, grazie di essere qui, ringrazio il dottor Scoglietti della presentazione. Io dedicherò questi 20 minuti che avevo a disposizione a presentarvi il progetto che la ISSUP sta portando avanti nelle scuole.
Then good evening everyone and thank you for being here. I thank Dr. Scoglietti for the presentation. I will dedicate these 20 minutes that I had available to present to you the project that ISSUP is carrying forward in schools. As Dr. Scoglietti said, I am a teacher in a secondary school and in the province of Bari, and I am dealing with the didactic and pedagogical section of ISSUP. So today, I am in the role of Vice President of ISSUP, but also as an instructor of the team that ISSUP has. And so I will try to be as quick as possible. Maybe you can follow along with the slides, because I'm bringing the concrete results directly of what Dr. Scoglietti said regarding the application of PNEI, and therefore with the project that we created and developed under his vision, which is called the School in Harmony Project, or rather, Creative Silence in the Classroom. Everything you see in these slides are direct results of the application in schools over these years, from 2022 until today, in the province of Bari, but also in the province of Taranto. So these are photos taken with our students, with the project we are carrying out, and then especially testimonies, direct accounts, that I also want you to read precisely because to become aware of the evolutionary and educational process that occurs when we give kids exercises in meditation, visualization. And I was saying, so what I want to show you in these slides are precisely these direct results of how we observed the kids change from the beginning of the project to the end of the project itself. So, this project arises first and foremost from a need for prevention and health education, something that we in schools are trying to achieve much more effectively. And it's a project that certainly favors the fight against school dropout and social distress. Excuse me if I read, this way I can also go a bit faster. So, we did this project with the intention of analyzing what the needs are, above all. Thank you, yes. Analyzing what the needs are that the kids are experiencing, especially adolescents. As Dr. Scoglietti said earlier, adolescents are subjected to stress. This stress undoubtedly arises from a sudden change in technology, which is advancing at impressive speeds. So the kids lose points of reference because they think they can find them outside, these points of reference, whereas instead, they need to try to find them within themselves. So with this project, we try to bring them closer to their interiority, to be with themselves, and therefore to resolve some of those issues you see there, learning disorders, which I tell you as a teacher, are increasing immensely. We have so many kids with various learning disorders. Poor attention, unsatisfactory school results, insecurity, anxiety, depression. And this naturally impacts us, because it reduces our ability to also have satisfaction, right? In teaching. And we are at risk of burnout. So it's a continuous recovery of balance, not only with the kids, but also as us teachers, as us educators. And so, as Dr. Scoglietti said, we start from the mind, working on the mind, because the mind, as PNEI indeed says, is the source of everything. The mind is related to emotions, it's related to the physical part, to everything. So it then leads to disorders, if thoughts don't go the right way, even to psychophysical, psycho-emotional disorders. And so, as a project, we are working precisely on recovering attention, memory, and the kids' learning capacity. This project, therefore, certainly addresses the psychophysiological well-being of the student, the teacher, but also the parents. It's a project conceived in a 360-degree way, because the kids don't just work at school, but they also have to work at home with their families. So there's feedback with the home too. And it certainly guarantees more effective learning, resilience to stress, and favors interpersonal relationships in the classroom, because anyway, it's very important to create an excellent environment in the class, both among the kids and also with the teachers themselves. I wanted to show you these images. So, these are two images that we decided to include in this slide that highlight how what we are talking about all has scientific results. In particular, these you see are alpha waves, and they are waves that have been measured with electroencephalographic studies on subjects, so both in a waking state, but also in a meditative state, where you observe a harmony also in the waves. And alpha waves are considered the secret to well-being and relaxation. The more subjects meditate, the more a serene environment and a better social life are created. So, they are certainly exercises of breathing, a visualization to foster moments of quiet and relaxation within the classroom environment. Here, I repeat, we have the decrease, therefore, of stress, of anxiety, the increase of creativity, concentration, intelligence, and thus we foster the development of the personal potential of the kids, promoting joy and serenity. Here, simply to remind you that we are proposing this project in schools of every level and grade, including social centers, associations, and all those who wish to adopt a teaching method that improves learning not only from the point of view of cognitive skills, but also from the point of view of personal skills, development of personal potential. And surely, we are in line with fostering student excellence, so bringing out the best skills in line with soft skills, which I will also talk about a bit later. And I want to get straight to the direct results. These photos are photos of the classes we worked with. They are a scientific high school in Motola, a first grade middle school, first class, a second grade technical institute, where, by fostering. Okay, here's the race against time. So, practically, what you see here, I just want to show you some diaries written by the kids, where, in particular, this logbook that we developed with the kids themselves helps to read the state they were in when they started practicing these exercises. And for example, this girl says, I was able to feel my breath. Something I couldn't do before. I felt calm and relaxed. Don't think this is a trivial thing for a kid to write. I was able to feel my breath. Look, there's enormous difficulty on the part of kids to even stop for 5 minutes. They are afraid to even close their eyes. So, these are already exceptional results that we observed during the evolution of the project. And finally, just a few questions. These questions you see, they wrote them themselves. These are all from the ISSUP archive that we collected. And if you see, have you changed in your relationships with your family members, or, how did you feel from the first day you started meditating? Naturally, the kids' answers were all extremely positive. They gained more confidence, more reflection, more balance. So we are working not only on the learning aspect, but also on the relationship with teachers, with friends. They even wrote, have you changed in your studies? Yes. They have changed in their studies, which is fundamental in school today. We want kids to have a different kind of approach to oral exams, with serenity in facing tasks in class, oral exams. There's tremendous anxiety among kids about taking simple tests. What can I say? That the result of this project continues, and here it's developed a bit, we do it during daytime hours. And these are some newspaper articles where the beginning, the launch of the project was included, and as you see, it talks precisely about soft skills, because, I'd like to close simply with a metaphor. For me, every kid is like a diamond. You need to polish each of its facets to make it shine. And that's what we do.
Vorrei chiudere semplicemente con una metafora. Per me ogni ragazzo è come un diamante. Bisogna ripulire ogni sua faccia per farlo brillare. Ed è quello che facciamo noi.
Speech by Dr. Scoglietti.
Good, now let's give the floor. Yes. To Dr. Vincenzo Scarono, Manager and President of ISSUP. Okay. Please.
Start now the intervention of the Dr. Vincenzo Scarono, President of ISSUP.
Dottor Vincenzo Scarano, Manager e Presidente della ISSUP.
Okay,
Prego.
buongiorno a tutti, anche da parte mia. Questo è l'indice della presentazione, quindi vedremo brevemente chi siamo.
Good morning, everyone, from me as well. And this is the presentation index, so we'll briefly see who we are. Sorry. And our history, very briefly, why this project, so why meditation in the company, what are the advantages for companies when they decide to implement this project? What science has extracted regarding this technique, and the timing, essentially the process that we then use when we go to do this activity. So, briefly on who we are. ISSUP is an ODV, voluntary organization, of the third sector. It's the first school in Italy concerned with peace as an inner conquest of the individual before being collective. With the theoretical and practical contribution of the cultural and spiritual traditions of the 5 continents. Peace, as understood by ISSUP, is not the absence of war. It is not conquered with mass demonstrations, but it's a socio-economic recipe to be applied to a society, but a state of consciousness, first individual and then group. What is our vision? So how do we intend to achieve this? Our vision is linked to the formation of a new state of consciousness for the human of the third millennium, capable of being in complete harmony with oneself, with the environment that surrounds them, so the family, work, in this sense, precisely, society, and the environment. To realize this mission, ISSUP uses numerous techniques, among which, precisely, the science of creative intelligence, or also called transcendental meditation, and impersonal action in the social sphere, so volunteerism, of which we are all advocates. Its trainers are indeed volunteer professionals who act as volunteers. And it collaborates, we said, constantly with regions, municipalities, embassies, schools, companies, and associations to disseminate precisely this cultural concept. We come to our founder, Professor Mario Brunetti. Earlier, Dr. Scoglietti mentioned his life path. Let's just say one number: 10,000 hours of conferences held on the 5 continents on the theme of peace. 10,000 hours. I present to Dr. Scoglietti, because no one did before. He's a doctor, you've seen his knowledge. He has held courses all over the world. Here are some cities: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Medina, St. Petersburg, India, Rishikesh, New Delhi, Bombay, Egypt, Greece, and Portugal, etc., etc., etc. The president is me, as of today. I'm a manager. I've worked for over 20 years for a multinational company. In these 20 years, I've dealt with sales network development, I've dealt with managerial training, and today, the new challenge given is the development of the real estate part. The honorary president is Mrs. Tara Gandhi, the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi. Honorary president is senator, lawyer, parliamentarian of this parliament, lawyer Vincenzo Mungari. Another honorary senator is Mrs. Cristina Colaci Vespucci, the last descendant of the Vespucci family. Let's go vertical on this topic. So why this project? In an increasingly fast and competitive world, managing to keep creativity and productivity high and stress low is extremely complicated. A stressed mind will never be either effective nor efficient, and in the long run, it will become intolerant towards what it's doing. To improve performance, besides optimizing processes, and this is, let's say, an activity that companies do on their own, a focused mind is necessary. This project, that of meditation in the company, practiced in the company, has shown excellent results from this point of view. The present project provides a concrete tool that allows company collaborators to manage challenging situations, ensuring health, motivation, and a natural focus on KPIs, which means key performance indicators, essentially. The advantages for companies are: 1. Natural team building among collaborators. because meditating in a group clearly strengthens cohesion. Meditating in itself increases self-awareness, hence soft skills, a topic we briefly mentioned regarding schools. Meditation helps to relax, thus having a healthier mind and body. In addition, clearly for the company that decides to implement it, it means a competitive advantage for the most important asset, which are the people. Scientific studies. Since the 60s, thousands of scientific research studies have followed one another, examining people who practice meditation. Over the years, research methods have gradually been refined thanks to the use of techniques like magnetic resonance imaging and electroencephalography. Control groups reveal all the changes induced in the body and brain of practitioners to avoid the famous placebo effect. There are different types of meditation. We will talk about transcendental meditation. The main characteristics, moving on, since time is short, of this meditation can be traced back to 3 points. 1. It is effective for numerous disorders, those that Dr. Scoglietti listed earlier. Absence of side effects, it is suitable for everyone. Regular practice of meditation yields benefits at the psychological, physiological, sociological, and even ecological levels. The technique is easy. It's not based on effort and concentration, nor on particular physical positions or breathing exercises. One meditates while remaining comfortably seated. During the 15-20 minutes of a meditation session, mind and body benefit from a level of rest often deeper than that of sleep. It has been shown, for example, that 2 important indicators of physiological stress, lactic acid and plasma cortisol, decrease significantly after only 20 minutes of practice. The benefits are evident in everyday life. Intelligence and creativity increase, thinking becomes clearer, short-term and long-term memory improves. The teaching of meditation is important and imparted by ISSUP individually, transmitted orally from teacher to student. The oral tradition is of fundamental importance. It is based on the choice of a seed sound which will then be used by the student. Through this seed sound, the mental resonance of the mantra. And the project that we have established has clearly been supervised by the Dr. Scoglietti. This, essentially, in summary, is the process. So we go there, we have 5 days where, let's say, depending on the reference day, we process the learning technique. Thank you all.
Andiamo a processare la tecnica di apprendimento. Grazie a tutti.
Grazie.
Speech by Dr. Scoglietti.
And if we can turn it off, let's say, the honourable member is here again, we are happy to be able to give a proper conclusion with his presence, and we would like to quite readily propose also some courses that we could offer for people who work and are very busy, even in this governmental context. Therefore, not only the provinces in the regions, and naturally I reveal to you, I also tell you that it is already done in many institutes, even in America, and also in Italy, the Public Prosecutor's Office of Perugia, so with lawyers, etc., judges, etc., have adopted, before each meeting, a relaxation technique, a way to relax, that helps them greatly in their demanding role within the justice system. Thank you.
Giusto per concludere, effettivamente avremmo bisogno prima di iniziare ogni seduta in Parlamento di un po' di meditazione.
Conclusions by Honorable Alessandro Caraniello.
Just to conclude, indeed we would need a bit of meditation before starting each session in Parliament, because in recent months, well, some rather intense events have occurred, haven't they? So maybe a 3rd level pranayama to relax a bit would be needed. Therefore, from a regulatory point of view, consider the intergroup available to try to understand if it's possible to intervene somehow and support this international school. And I believe it is a fundamental theme precisely for the protection and psychophysical well-being of every citizen. So I think it's fundamental to delve deeper and, from a regulatory point of view, to intervene. So I greet you, I thank you. I'm sorry I had to leave. On the other hand, they were disappointed that I left, but I couldn't manage 2 conferences simultaneously. But let's leave with a promise. Among other things, with Dr. Corso, we see each other daily, well, in the Agriculture Committee, and let's try to understand how to start a fruitful collaboration. Let's be pragmatic because politics must be used to solve the problems of
E
communities.
cerchiamo di capire come poter iniziare una proficua collaborazione. Siamo pragmatici perché la politica deve essere utilizzata per risolvere i problemi delle comunità. Grazie.
Transcription and translation of this interview was made by the editorial staff of Idea News. By Radio Idea, the service, and the original version of the video in Italian is available on the online blog ideans.org. For more information visit issup.org. Thanks for listening.
Idea News Magazine è una produzione del circuito Airplay.